Hi, I'm Mary Kopczynski, the CEO of RegAlytics. Here's your update on this week's 19,737 regulatory alerts from my balcony. The regulator of the week is Michigan. Michigan is having a hearing today that I sort of wish I could attend because they're proposing 7 new official state holidays, including Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, Lunar New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Diwali, and Vaisakhi. The topic of the week is one that has been close to my heart for some time, and that is the role of credit rating agencies. So, little history lesson here. Back in 1909, John Moody began providing investors with credit information about railroad bonds that would help finance the expansion of railways across the United States. In the early days, the investors had to pay for the rating agencies for some good information, which totally makes sense to me. It's like an insurance policy if you want to protect your investment. However, for some reason in the 1970s, rating agencies switched to make the issuer pay for the rating. At some point after that, I came into the picture, and I remember learning how this works in practice, and it sounds something like this. We paid for Moody's, but we'll also pay for Fitch because they're going to give us better credit ratings. And I said, what's the point of the rating agencies again? And they said, it's a requirement for issuing bonds. There was no focus on it being a form of diligence or sound underwriting skills. It was just a regulatory requirement. And then when the crash happened and everyone was upset that CDOs and credit default swaps tanked the global economy, I kept wondering, why aren't the credit rating agencies in trouble? And it was explained to me that they are protected under freedom of speech. They have a right to vet issuances and speak freely as to their opinions. It didn't sound right to me, but then it took almost 10 years for the credit rating agencies to actually get in trouble for their part in the financial crisis. And eventually rules came out that the salespeople had to be separated from the credit officers, etc. Anyway, this week there was a big evolution in the process. The SEC passed one of the final Dodd-Frank requirements, which was when in 2010, 13 years ago, Congress directed the SEC to get rid of named credit agencies in their rules and instead provide an actual standard for creditworthiness. This is a big milestone, and it created a buzz of commentary from the various SEC commissioners who I thank, and I give credit to Carolyn Crenshaw's statement explaining this history to me because I learned something new and I thought it was fascinating. And my advice to all of you is to trust your gut, because even if the way things are seem wrong, you can change it by speaking up. And speaking of something that seems wrong, but it's true, as of Monday, Credit Suisse is no more. The final merger has been legally consummated, and that's it for a 167-year institution. Moving on to Coinbase, as predicted, we now have 7 state suits and counting. Someone asked me for my prediction, and I'll throw it out there because then I'll have a recording of what I said and when I said it, but I think this will make it to the Supreme Court, and I think with the current courts dismantling of federal overreach, the SEC will be found to be violating due process laws because they're really ruling through enforcement. Why do I think this? Because the SEC has said, come, register with us. But then they rejected a bunch of registrations from any digital asset or crypto-related company because they didn't have sound risk management processes. Yet they allowed Coinbase to register as a publicly traded company and then shut them down for violating securities rules focused on separation of operations. Anyway, I see what the SEC did. I understand how they came to the conclusion by looking at everything through a very specific lens. But I think it was not well coordinated, and I think the Supreme Court will agree that Coinbase wasn't given appropriate due process. That said, Coinbase is sorely harmed. Their legal bills are going to be through the roof, but they will fight, and I think they have a case. In contrast, Binance, I think it's going down. The SEC issued an emergency order today to freeze and repatriate assets back into the United States. This is going to be really hard to defend what they did without some serious criminal liability. Okay, there's obviously more this week, but I'm running out of time. But one last big item you should know about are the federal bank regulatory agencies. And yes, that is a plural. The Fed, the FDIC, and the OCC worked together to provide joint interagency guidance on all banking organizations on how to manage risks associated with third-party relationships. It will replace any previously offered guidance by the individual regulators. It's not changing much, but it is confirming that these rules apply to any operations with a fintech organization. So definitely go check that out. And that's it this week for RegAlytics. Join me every Wednesday for your dose of regulatory news.